Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Hope you're doing fantastically well. With myself, Jake Culshaw, Charlie Zazzera, and the man, the myth, the legend. We've flown him over on business class all the way to Watford. Mr. Jordan, Watford Analytics, mate. It's so lovely to see you in person. We've had him on the channel before. How are you, bud? Are you okay?
Doing really well. Good to be here. Every time we met before, it's been over Zoom or something, right? So you're better looking in person, I have to say, both of you.
Charlie particularly. I mean, we were talking about your shave pre-match, Charlie. Is that a standard pre-match ritual?
I'm not happy sitting next to you two on this video, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully the chat's better than the look.
Well, look, we're going to touch on today on Watford 0, Hull City 0. I mean, it was a bigger game for Hull than it was for Watford in terms of the grand scheme of the season. I think Hull will be disappointed the fact that they haven't come away with more than a draw. Jordan, just overall, your assessment of Watford's performance, a 0-0 on the surface, been from the outside, I think, it was a pretty dead game, but what did you make of Watford's performance today?
It was difficult. I think we were mixed, weren't we? We weren't particularly dominant at any point, but we had moments where we were getting into the game. We're just lacking any sort of fluidity in that final third. We looked so fragmented, and even when we countered, it broke down by our own accord so often. And I think Hull were really comfortable in sucking us into that press, allowing us to get forward, and then just breaking and taking their chances to play one touches, bounce off and get through, and they kept doing it to us. So I think sometimes it's almost a little bit deceiving. Like, we weren't as in control as we looked for parts of the game, but yeah, an odd one. I thought it's a tough one to analyse, but we hopefully can start actually capitalising some of these chances, because otherwise we're going to just continue that process for too long.
Yeah, of course. Charlie, just break it down for me, pros and cons of that Watford performance. If you had a table, the best bits about it and the worst bits about it.
I'd say best bits is probably the coaching again. When I did the last video with Sam, we talked about what do we want our identity to be, what could it be under Clevs, and I thought today was pretty what we said in terms of, I thought defensively our shape was fine and we done well out of possession. We didn't control the game until I thought maybe missed Tom Delly a bit. But I thought in transition we looked a threat just until that final pass. The finishing and the final pass and final decision was just shocking. But that's just the squad we've got. I was pretty pleased with the performance. I thought another day we could have won so against a decent Hull team, so I'll take it.
Jordan, is this where we're at as a Watford team? Because I saw a lot of people post-match. I've had a little scroll on Twitter, as you do, and a lot of people are saying we look well coached under Tom Cleverley. We look like we've got a plan, a system that we want to play, but we just lack a bit of quality in those key moments, those individuals. Would you say that's probably a reflection of what this Watford team at this moment in time?
I think so, and I think that comes across. You know, we talk about being well coached. In some aspects we are, but it's still a game where we had chances where we should be able to exploit that game and come away with three, at home especially, with our home record. I don't think we should be content with that, and I think that does show how poor we've been at times at home this season, and away as well, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that we have to improve, and I just think we're maybe starting to show signs that we can, but there's just so many issues. It's hard to nail down one, and you end up as a fan, you look towards the positive, and I think right now that is what we're looking at. And not to take away from that, I understand it, but it's a really interesting time to be a Watford fan in a way. It's not under the Pozzo era. It's not really been in this specific area. I think we're struggling to kind of grasp what we should be feeling. You know, it's an interesting one.
What are you feeling, Charlie, at this moment in time? Be honest, as Jordan mentioned it, we haven't really been at this point under the Pozzos. I'm sure we'll touch on the season a little bit later on, but it's a weird time to be a Watford fan, because whilst there are some positives, there's a bit of confusion about what we're trying to be at this moment in time, if that makes sense. Yeah. Maybe it's because of this point in the season as well, because we don't have a lot to play for.
Yeah, I think our expectations have gone from one extreme to the other when we're used to being in the Premier League, so we think, oh, we should be winning the Championship. And after a couple of really bad seasons, what Jordan said in terms of we're happy with today, we're really at home, we should be winning with the chances we had. How am I feeling? To be honest, considering some of the times this season, obviously disappointed with Val going. I think there's some good vibes with Cleverley's coming in. We'll see if Jordan wants him to get the job. I'm content, but like I said again on the last video with Sam, I was like, as a football fan, I don't want too many seasons when we're just in April, May, chilling like...
Well, that's back-to-back seasons, isn't it? That's happened.
Seasons, but yeah, one thing I wanted to ask Jordan, he was talking about kind of being well coached. Do you think, especially if we keep Clevs, do you think we can improve and we can maybe next season see us take our chances with good coaching, or do you think personnel, you've either got the ability or you haven't? Because we're still bringing on Rajovic, who I actually thought played well today. But do you think it's a personnel issue, or do you think with the coach we get more out of this group of players?
Yeah, I think how effective our coaching decision is going to be will depend purely on what we do in the transfer window. How are we going to support him? Not just in terms of incoming, but also outgoing as well. Who do we keep? If you're going to keep Tom Cleverley, then you've got to start the work now to prepare for that season. You have to be looking to support him, and it's not just a case of going out and spending a ton of money, but right now we've still got that mismatch of a squad, and it's tough for him to really, we're playing a back three. We haven't really played a back three consistently all season, and we're having to, put things together and try and find a way to do so. I do think Cleverley could be effective. I question whether we're going to really invest ourselves with financially, but also mentally into Tom Cleverley enough to support him. I'm not sure if we're at a point now where we're beyond a coach coming in and making changes to the current squad to have any sort of lasting effect, as even lasting enough for us to get into the playoffs, to get promotion. It feels like we need to get more, and that comes from, it's multifaceted. It can't just be the coach, in my opinion, which sounds negative. It's sad to say. I think we're the furthest along that road where it does feel like now coach is almost not irrelevant, but it's less of a factor than it was.
Before we touch more on the key moments from today, Charlie turned to me as we were walking down Occupation Road and outside Vicarage Road, and he said, do you reckon they'll get the signature out before the final home game of the season? Would it surprise you to see Watford confirm Tom Cleverley as their next head coach before Saturday?
No, I think they might. I think they could do it. I was waiting to see after what happened with this game, but I thought it was fairly positive. I think we know the club like a good PR moment at times.
Well, Rob Edwards, you think about when he got announced before the last game of the season as well?
Yeah, I think everyone's behind Cleverley. You saw his name getting chanted throughout the game from the rookery. The rookery was getting good voice even when the chances were getting missed, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get confirmed this week.
Jordan, would you give it to him? I know it's tough at this moment in time, but if you look to the options that we could potentially go for and managers that we've maybe gone for in the past, and you look at Tom Cleverley, which one are you leaning more towards that you think that you would like to happen and what you think will happen? It's probably two separate questions.
I mean, look, I think in a sense I would like to see it. It's on the condition that there's some effort put into, actually harbouring that appointment and allowing it to succeed. And maybe there's some goodwill with Cleverley. They want to capitalise on as a club. Maybe there's that. I think there are certain intangibles of Cleverley that you can't really quantify. Like, obviously, it's going to be taken into consideration by the owner and Scott Dusby and so on. But I think, based on the information we have and what the other options are, what effect they can have, I think Tom Cleverley does give you a better chance in a sense. Even if you look at next season as being a placeholder season, we need more time, perhaps we're waiting for investment, who knows? But I think Cleverley is still probably the best option for them, unless something falls in their lap that they're not expecting, potentially. But with Gino, I don't think that he's necessarily resigned to one thing yet. I think he's going to take his time. But
I think this is the thing with Clevs, and I said it after the West Brom game because we touched on the three at the back system, and I felt that's the best system for the group of players we have at this moment in time, and he identified that straight away. I think you look at some individuals that he's improved, maybe just the fact that he's got put an arm around them, but Batman's obviously the obvious one. I think you maybe even look at Ryan Porteous, whose performances have stepped up, and I know Jordan, I've seen a lot of tweets from you about his stepping out and can be very rash. And he's another player that has to be fair, calmed down a little bit. Well, I say calmed down, improved a bit more under Tom Cleverley. Trying to think of other individuals that have gone on a bit more than maybe usual under Val.
I think we said before the Southampton game, Tom Dele-Bashiru looked really good. Porto, I thought he was good again today. I think out of the spell, I think he's the player for me who's improved the most. Enjoyable moment when he was in the foot race today with Ozan Tufan. He knew the assignment. He knew it was going to do. And do you know what? Rajovic, today I thought he came on.
What's in that bit, by the way, mate?
Huh?
What's in that bit?
No, you know what? He came on, he used his physicality, won a foul, stepped up like Ronaldo again for a free kick, got it on target. I thought he looked better.
I think he's an impact sub, isn't he, Rajovic?
And he took a throw in straight after too. So it was all action. When he came, I will say actually, I was having a conversation during the game. I do think that he did look a little bit better. I know, again, our standards are set a little bit lower potentially, but at least he showed a little bit of intent when he came on. And we were at a point in the game where we just had no consistency up front, and it was something positive at least. But we can't be critical of that.
Tom Dele-Bashiru is one player that has improved under Tom Cleverley. What does he give to this team that maybe the other midfielders don't? Because I felt that we missed that today, but I can't really put my finger on what that is.
Yeah, I think today was a good example. It really emphasised that, because with Kayembe and Kone, we saw them not really comfortable in picking up that position, that deeper spot. That Tunde Bashiru has actually looked really accomplished. It makes us look back now with hindsight and think, why did we never try that under Ismail? But I think his ability to hold that position, but also just be intelligent enough to pick up the ball in space and play off that back three or back five. We've seen it as Watford fans so often. We know when that becomes that horrible situation where you're just passing around the back five, the ball just goes back and forth, there's no progression. And Tunde Bashiru is mobile enough to get in a passing position, to receive the ball, and actually positive enough to play forward. And I think without that, we just have this kind of no man's land of Kayembe and Kone. They don't really occupy that space, not just defensively, but in a possession standpoint too. And I think not having him there, we saw how that midfield can kind of crumple a little bit. We lost any sort of structure, which is a shame, because Kayembe and Kone have obviously been two important players for us. But you can see there's a drop in standard of how we operate that back five when he's not there.
Jordan mentioned the midfield. He also mentioned the back five as well, Charlie. And I felt there was a notable difference in our performance with Ngakia and Sema at wing back, then Andrews and Lewis. I felt that clearly it was an instruction from Cleverley to get the full-backs and wing-backs a bit higher up the pitch, put Hull under a bit more pressure. It feels like those two positions in this system are two of the most important in terms of the way we play. Is that fair, do you think?
Definitely important. I'm not sure about the most important, but I think the reason we're talking about it is because I don't think those players in those positions have performed that well in recent weeks. I actually thought Jamal Lewis had one of his better games. I thought he was crossing in decent areas. Not as decisive as maybe you'd like. I think Ryan, again, didn't have his best game. Like we said, we need him to get his confidence back. But yeah, when the subs came on, I thought Ngakia did well. He played a really nice pass into Kone that set us free, and even some nice runs. And Sema, we know what we're going to get. And when he's running out defenders, they're terrified of him because he's so unorthodox and they don't know what he's going to do. So positions up for grabs. Important, I think, if we're recruiting in the summer, especially that left-back position might be somewhere we need to look at. But yeah, I don't think the starters played well, but it's good to see the subs come on and make an impact.
Key moments at the start, Charlie, that penalty for Hull. Wesley Hoot, it was a really weird opening few minutes for Wesley. He started so slow, Jordan. I mean, first 10 minutes, he gave the ball away, gave away a penalty, and just looked like he was all over the shop. I mean, there was no complaints really. I mean, it looked just like a waft of it.
Yeah, it did. I think you're right. I think Hoot had a relatively poor game today, I think, for Hoot standards that he's set.
Player of the year in his bag.
Each already. Yeah, no, it was a poor game for him, and I think in possession he really stands out when he's bad in possession, because that back line relies on him. The team relies on him too, and there's a couple where he clipped it into our own half and he's just short and just didn't look good. So everything was a bit hesitant, a bit rushed, and I think that was obviously testament as well to Hull's front three. I think they actually operated quite well and made it difficult for our back three, and even the wing backs there you mentioned, they played a part in that too. But yeah, no, it was not his best game, and one that I hope he recovers from.
It wasn't the best game for Hoop, but it was one of Batman's best games of the season. I know it's been a weird season for Dan. He started the season as captain, the 5-year deal, everything around that. He's in the team, he's out the team, he's in the team, he's out the team, he's back in it. And I have to say, Charlie, probably my man of the match in terms of key saves at key times. I think we all know what we're going to get from Dan. I think that probably sums him up, really. He's a confidence goalkeeper. He's not amazing with his feet, but he is a good shot stopper and he makes big saves. I was really happy for him, but we wanted to touch on the rookery singing his name, because I know that it's been a tough season for him at times.
It has, and I've been in the rookery quite a lot, and sometimes, especially when we're trying to play out the back with Val, you hear the moans and groans in the atmosphere, and every time you touch it, it seems like negative. But today, he made that penalty save. It probably helped there was our old friend, Mr. Tufan. Great penalty save, jumped on it. And then again, straight after that, there was a back heel, which he reacted well to it. You summed it up nicely. Good, solid shot stopper. I still drives me mad sometimes. We just plays aimless long balls and we lose possession. But today, he made some vital saves. And in the second half as well, there was that one at the end where he made the save, but he got up and got the second one. So fair play to Dan, and yeah, he deserves his flowers today.
Save from Carvalho's free kick, Greaves the end. You'd expect him to save that one. I guess my question to you, Jordan, is when you look at the Watford team now, and I think we're 15th in the league at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, which positions do you look at as a priority for next summer? Because one of the key ones that I think a lot of people said was goalkeeper, but are there other positions which you look at and think we have to upgrade for next season and going into the next campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few. I think it's probably too many, really. But and not to avoid that question, but at, from a ground root level, what are you going to do next season? That's how you're going to assess what you need to sign. And, we're looking at, even you mentioned left back or left wing back. Is it a left back or is it a left wing? What do we need in that position? So we should be doing that. That should be in the works right now. And I do worry we're leaving it late. Maybe they've got more of a plan than we know, but probably not, right? So that's the real question for me. But in terms of you look at that squad, we're lacking a lot. Even centre back three, we're still one or two short, really, aren't we? Striker, we could be losing one in Dennis. He's not quite sure. Maybe he stays. It's potential, right?
Would you keep Dennis if there was a chance?
I wouldn't, probably. I probably wouldn't. But again, I think we're going to, most likely. I think if you're Gino, you're thinking, if we can give him a decent deal, if we can interest him in coming, which I think we probably could, is there a potential sell-on? That's what the owner's thinking about. We need to think about what are we doing to make this team win now. I don't know if Dennis is going to be that option. He's got quality, obviously, but if you're a recruitment guy, you're looking at that team, you're thinking that striker group is not solid. They're very different to each other. There's no cohesion. It's a little bit. It's mixed, right? And then everywhere else too, you might be losing Kone, you might be losing Espria. They've got a lot of work on their hands, so I can't really give you one. I can give you 11.
A lot of work on their hands. I think the thing is with Dennis, he frustrates you though, Dennis, because I feel like a lot of the time he wants everything played at his own pace. He gets the ball, he slows it down, and he wants to beat a man. But sometimes you're just thinking either get a shot off or beat a man. I feel like sometimes with Dennis, he tries to play the game at his own pace. Is that harsh?
I praised him. I think it was Cardiff. I think that was one of his first games that he came back. And it was like he played the game at his own pace. When he got the ball, we just seemed and we were like, he's showing really good composure. We saw what he could do against Leeds. Like that is exactly Emmanuel Dennis in the tin. But yeah, he's not decisive enough. I don't know if he thinks he's above the level, so he's good and he's got that time. But the Championship's better than he might think. And I don't know, because I've seen it before, I'm like, I would kind of like him if we get him because I know he can do it. But it might not be the smartest and there might be better options. And I'm just like, could we attract someone of his calibre, which I'm not sure.
Well, he said on Sky Sports News this week that he would be open to staying.
Yeah, no, he did. And I think what you said is true, though. You see those moments against Cardiff on the bench. Dennis is good when Dennis. It's harsh to say when he wants to be good, but when he's good, he's good. When he's not, it can affect things. And even today, I'm just thinking about that. I haven't watched any highlights back, but I'm thinking about that one opportunity that half fell to Espria, and Dennis kind of took off his foot. And that moment that's where the real frustration comes to Dennis. Not when he tries something, he doesn't pull it off. That's one thing, but those moments like that when you just want Espria to take a shot and he's just trying to turn an awkward situation. That bothers me a little bit.
That was one moment and a couple of other opportunities that Watford did have, because it wasn't just Hull getting good opportunities. I mean, we had the Mateus Martins one at the end. I mean, now he hasn't hit the target there. I'm not quite sure. You then had the Espria sort of run. You had a few. We got in some good areas, Charlie, but it feels like we don't create anything too clear cut. Can you put your finger on why that's the case? Because a lot of the time we get to the 18-yard box, it feels like we lack a little bit of decision making. We lack a little bit of that final pass, that final decision. Is it just as simple as that?
I just think it's down to personnel and quality. Like that's why I think the coaching's been pretty good. Sorry, I've just got that show going on.
Yeah, off camera, there's some real entertainment. We'll have to go to VAR for that one.
Carry on. Yeah, no, I've gone. I just think it's the personnel. Just having that composure in the final third. I actually think if that chance fell to Dennis, you got to keep rolling. Come on, compose yourself, lads. Like the players, we need.
But for people who can't see, obviously, someone's. A couple's enjoying themselves off camera. I mean, look, what we'll say is just on that I tell you what, his final ball's pretty good. But just in terms of Watford's final ball, what is like? Is it just as simple as individual quality?
Just composure, quality. That Martins one, I'm just like, take a touch. He's got the whole of the box, and he just terrible shot. When we were running, it was like 5-on-2 at the end. He's shot like Kone's tried to through ball it. It's just like someone just. I would have liked Kone to go up and take a bit of time and have a shot. I honestly just think it's down to quality, composure, and that's something that I wanted to see when Dennis came in, and I don't think he's been able to affect it as much. But maybe if Dennis stayed on for the whole game, he might have capitalised on one of those chances.
The last individual I wanted to touch on, Jordan, before we kind of talk to you about your life as a Watford fan in the States, is around Yasser Espria. So Sam is a man who gets a bit frustrated with Espria because he sees him with the amount of quality he has, but he doesn't feel like he influences games as much as he'd like. Me and Charlie have said I think it's very difficult to judge a player at Watford because of the different managers, the different systems, the different positions all the time. Asprilla, I don't know, I've lost count of how many managers he's played under. Similar to Sarr, similar to Pedro. What's your take on Yasser Asprilla as a footballer? Because it's very, very likely he's going to be leaving in the summer. It looks like we'll probably get £15 million probably for him. What's your assessment on him at this moment in his career as well?
He's a difficult one to assess in some ways. I think what you said is accurate, that he's in and out of games, isn't he? But he can dictate them. I think probably what we are hoping by now, or not necessarily by now, but we're hoping maybe in his time at Watford, we're going to see that moment where he stepped up a little bit and controlled the team, like João Pedro did, where suddenly he became like a leader of the team, not just from his, he wasn't a Troy Deeney leader, obviously, but he picked up the game, he controlled things, he was able to change it for us relatively consistently. Asprilla is still in that in-between phase. I think he's a less of a final product, but we're in a point where we kind of have to sell. It's not really a choice anymore, it's a necessity. So I think he's a really talented player, but again, as you touched on there, he'd probably benefit from being in a more stable situation, being brought into a team where he was needed for his qualities. Right now, I looked at the game today and I just thought so much of it looked like Asprilla do something. That was it. Ken Sema came in and changed it, but if we don't have Shaq Patadze, if we don't have Asprilla, we look a pretty one-dimensional team. And I think he offers you more than someone like even Emmanuel Dennis in a sense, because he is able to not just score, but pick up the ball, drift in different spaces. He can play depending on how the game is played against him, and we don't really have anyone else that can do that right now.
He's going to be likely to be leaving in the summer, Charlie. I guess the question is, we touch on next season as well with Cleverly, but just these players as well, and we will do some stuff over the summer about Watford coming up, but who are guaranteed for you starters next season when you look at this Watford team? Who are players that you look at and you go, they have to be starting? Because we know Asprilla will be moving on. We know there might be some other players who'll be moving on. Who are the ones that you look at and you go, they should have to be starting under whoever head coach next season?
Wes Hoot, Ryan Porteous, Ryan Andrews, but he needs to, his form's dipped a bit, so hopefully he can get back up to level. I think Tom Dele-Bashiru. I think Kayembe's had a good season. Kone's going to be an interesting one. I really like him as a player, but whether he's, I don't know, not coachable or whatever, but sometimes he can find it difficult. And I think he struggled where Tom Dele-Bashiru is really good in tight areas. Sometimes I think Kone deep struggles, but when he's got space, he's a lot better. I'd love to see him play for us next year. And other than that, I thought Bayo played pretty well today. There's going to be other players, but how many did I name? 5 or 6? Anyone I missed, Jordan?
No, I think you probably said a few more than you should have said in some ways, actually. I think it's tough to say, isn't it? I think, and again, it depends on what the team's trying to do. I think that's one of the aspects you talk about there, where it's hard to kind of pinpoint the players that should be sticking around, because someone like Bayo might be useful in a certain team, but we don't really know. So it's tough. I think Hoot is obviously one that is there. Even Kone, is he a potential to go? I mean, we're at the point where our main way of making money this season, balance of the books, is going to be player sales. We're at that, unless we do something pretty impressive, we're at that last point of having that potential turnover. So, yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, but I think this summer's will be quite tough. Tom Dele-Bashiru is in his last year of his contract.
He might be. I think he might be.
Yeah, okay. So that might be something we see. And I think he's one that's potential to build around. And especially if Cleverly is going to be here next season. We said about this earlier, but he's one that has really improved in that time. And we've got to look for the value where we can find it. And I think it's going to be players like that maybe conventionally wouldn't be someone you'd really be kind of so focused on keeping and making a focal point in the team. But we've got to be pragmatic.
Yeah, for sure.
I asked Jordan a question
of course.
Out of possession today, which I still found quite interesting. When Hull were building up, which was really deep, inviting the press like you mentioned, I still felt like we were man marking. You saw like Ngakia on there, like he was high up, and you saw like Wesley Hoot and Ryan Porteous on their wingers. What do you make of that? Because we saw a lot of that with Val. Do you think? Because it didn't feel like it was man marking for all the game, but some parts, I just don't know what you felt, how we were out of possession.
I think we tried to. It's a mixed game for Hull, because I think on the one hand we exploited them quite at times, right? We did push up. There's a few moments that second half, and we had a few fresh legs, and we were able to actually make them suffer a little bit. But we are playing hard, we are playing tight to them because they want to control the ball. The problem is their front line was so comfortable with their back to goal. They've got no problem playing 3 passes through the middle and popping it forward. They're taking it down. I mean, Ozan Tufan's playing a false 9. It's a strange position, right? But he's able to do it because of the support around him.
What has happened?
Yeah, it was odd. And he had a foot race with Ryan Porteous, which you might have to touch on. But
Sorry, just on a foot race. Francesco Van de Ven.
Oh,
That burst
word.
of pace he's got.
Francesco Van de Ven. Charlie said to me, we were walking up here, and he goes, "Oh, I've got a new nickname for the Chilean Pirlo."
But are you
Goodness
surprised
me.
by his pace? Or the other strikers not?
I'm going to be real. Whenever I see Sierralta sprinting, I always think he's going to pull his hammy.
Oh yeah, I know. That hamstring tape looks like it's going to snap any moment. Yeah, I know. He is a walking hamstring injury. It's shocking. Well, it was almost a pretty bad penalty you gave away, or sending off potentially, right? That was one moment. But I forgot the original question now.
We were talking about the man marking.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And yeah, we did take risks, but I would say that it was kind of 50-50 in who benefited. At times they almost suffered, but equally, they actually made us pay quite heavily too. They isolated us, which they wanted to do. They wanted to get us high. They wanted us to be one-on-one with the centre-backs. They almost, we touched on there, Sierralta, Porteous as well, even a Hoot at times. They almost got the benefit of doing so. So I'd say both teams were trying to do that, but I'd almost say if anyone was to edge it, I'd say Hull probably felt like they had the chance to win that game. Not in terms of that particular phase of getting us to press in and so on. But yeah, as the game went on, it got a little harder for sure.
I just say,
I actually prefer that approach. I thought against Southampton, our press was really good, and they were trying to build up. And there was times today, not a lot, but I thought our press, and you hear the crowd. I thought it was quite good. It's risk, and we talked about Val doing that. But I thought it was quite a good risk because we got those dynamic players. We could have caught him on occasion. The ref got in the way at one point, didn't he?
that ref was that ref, less said about him the better, is all I'm going to say. My last take on this game, really, is how did Wesley Hoot not get sent off for a second yellow? Oh, my words. Honestly, the first one, obviously, the first half. The second one, little tactical on the halfway line, run off. You saw the referee pull out for the yellow, and he was like, you know what? We'll let the Wesley off.
We're all on the beach. The rest on the beach. We're on the beach.
Jordan, I have to say, it's been a pleasure having you on today, mate, in the Mad Squirrel post-match pint. I just wanted to ask you, for people who don't know, first time back at Vicarage Road in how long?
Almost 5 years, yeah. So
The last game?
Last game was against Brighton at home, first game of the season. Happy Gathia season, we got sacked. So it was a while ago. It was the first competitive game after the FA Cup final. Started with a home defeat. So coming back to 0-0 feels like a little bit of an upgrade. But yeah, no, it's weird to be back. I had the season ticket for 15 years before I left, so it was strange to leave it, and coming back felt a little weird. But much is the same, so it was nice to be home.
Sorry, can we just talk about, obviously, if you guys haven't checked out the Watford Buzz, Jordan's on it with Tom.
What a pod that is, I love it.
It's a great pod. But it just blew my mind, Tom's Diet Coke habit. And I wanted to ask the question, Jacob, what do you drink on a regular? What do you drink during the day?
Just that. I'm a water sort of guy. I mean,
H2O.
do you know what? When we popped down to the Watford training ground, so this is a bit, well, not an exclusive, but when we did the WD18 Cup, we had to pick up a few raffle gifts, and I went into the toilets, and on the screen, above the urinals, it says you should be carrying a bottle of water everywhere with you. And from that moment, I thought, you know what, I'm going to act like Emmanuel Dennis, like all the players at Watford, and carry a bottle of water every day. But the Diet Coke obsession, Jordan, I mean, 6.
Yeah. I think I've left the Watford Buzz to join you guys after that. That was a horrifying. I knew that he drank Coke. I'm surprised this has become an actual thing for us. But I knew he drank Coke to an extent, but that is absurd. Like, that is exceptional, and I'm disgusted to be on the podcast.
That's obscene.
Tom, get yourself down the Mad Squirrel. Just have a couple of these, and it's a lot more healthier, maybe.
Just last couple of questions, Jordan. Just on, has anything changed about Vicarage Road when you've been back? Is the experience a bit different? What's anything different to when you last came here in 2019?
I did notice some baking actually going on. There were some brownies and carrot cake, which I thought was a little questionable.
Oh wow!
So that changed a little bit, but honestly, it felt very similar. Like, I don't think you have some external things changing and so on, but it still feels the same. It's still where you sat for so long. Everything's the same. It smells the same. It looks the same. And there are little kind of nostalgic things that you forget about until you're there, which it sounds a bit weird, but you notice it when you come back after a long time. So even though it's 0-0, I enjoyed myself.
You know what? I take that for granted, though. I think when you go week in, week out to the games of Vicarage Road, and Jordan obviously coming over since that Brighton game, you think, wow, that's a long time, but you kind of get used to those match day rituals, that match day buzz, I guess. The last thing I've kind of got to ask Jordan, is what's life been like following from afar, Watford? I mean, in terms of, do you do certain things? Do you have your match day rituals, your preparation? What's the sort of
kickoff?
What time's kickoff?
Kickoff 3 o'clock is at 10 a.m. for me. So it's actually if you're going to watch it on TV, I prefer it because you get up, take a dog for a walk, have a coffee, you got some time, you watch the game, you finish the game, you can get out of your mind most of the time and get on with the rest of your day. So it's actually it's fine.
So our day's ruined at 5 p.m. Yours is ruined at 12.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I've got a long weekend after. Yeah, you're probably in a better position actually. But no, I got used to it a little bit. And it felt very strange at first. Like I had barely watched a Watford home game on TV before I left, so it was weird. But having been there before, I felt like it was a little bit easier to bridge that gap somewhat. It's strange. And what I will say though is even in that time, when I left is when I started even speaking to everyone, you guys on Twitter and so on, and it does make you lean into that fandom a little bit more. So that was a positive to come from it, and you make ways to continue the fandom in a different place, I guess.
Jordan, It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah. Honestly, I tell you what, number one, great takes. Number two, one of the best looking men I've ever met in my life. The shades of Wesley Hoot. I'm going to be honest, there's shades. Charlie, what a pleasure.
Thank you, mate.
Get down to the Mad Squirrel. Here's the message.
Last post-match pint for the season.
Goodness me. Wow. I mean, wowee. Unbelievable. We're going to finish it with that as well. Post-match prime brought to you by the Mad Squirrel. Make sure to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to WD18. Follow Jordan, the Watford Buzz Pods. Great stuff. And hopefully we'll have him back on very, very soon. Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend.